If you've gone to a shopping center or grocery store in December, you've probably seen and heard the iconic Salvation Army bell ringers. They are a trademark of the holiday season, and with that time of year approaching, we wanted to explore the history of the organization in Framingham. I'm Lilia Cormack, and this is the Frame by Frame.
It's so important to study the Salvation Army history in Framingham because it parallels what Framingham's history was as a whole.
The Salvation Army began as an evangelical church in London. Its mission was to preach the gospel while also meeting people's needs through social services like food, shelter, and disaster relief. Framingham's branch was founded nearly 135 years ago, back in 1891.
We look at the year 1891, and this is such an important time period, not just in Framingham, but in the country, because in terms of social welfare, the first federal social welfare program didn't come along until 1935. So this was a really difficult time period for some people in the 1890s. The Salvation Army was essential coming in and supporting a lot of people who just fell through the cracks at this time period. So the fact that Framingham was one of these early outposts, so to speak, really speaks to the growth of Framingham in the 1890s.
Anna says that establishment and subsequent initiatives launched throughout the organization's 135-year history often reflect widespread economic developments of their times.
You almost look at any sort of need or crisis point and you see reference of the Salvation Army. Certainly the 1890s were reflecting there was a lot of growth in South Framingham, especially a lot of need.
In 1891, Framingham, like much of the country, was growing rapidly due to industrialization. But just 2 years later, the Panic of 1893 caused widespread unemployment and poverty nationwide. The Salvation Army's response to that crisis marked the beginning of more than a century of service to the local community. A few decades later, the organization sent 250 volunteers to the front lines of World War I. Among their many contributions, Salvation Army volunteers provided music, spiritual support, and hot meals, most famously serving homemade donuts to remind the soldiers of home, a gesture that earned them the nickname Donut Lassies. And the Salvation Army's support didn't stop when the war was over.
There was a lot of challenges coming home from war, and so the Salvation Army were the one who stepped in and sort of provided that bridge for a lot of soldiers, including those returning to Framingham.
And during perhaps the most notorious financial crisis in the 20th century, the Salvation Army stepped up yet again.
We have records that during the Great Depression in Framingham, the Salvation Army provided soup kitchens here. It's really important to study the impact of the Salvation Army because it provided a lot of support, especially when there were times of crisis and need.
That support during times of crisis has continued to this day. Just this past month, when the government shutdown cut SNAP benefits for millions of Americans, it was local food pantries like the Salvation Army that helped keep their communities fed.
When we look at the fabric of Framingham, you follow the needs by looking at where the Salvation Army was. And so as a historian, when we study something like social history, economic history, it's really important to see what milestones it hit.
The Salvation Army's history shows how national political and economic shifts affected Framingham at the local level, and more importantly, how the community supported one another in response.